Welcome in to season 2 of Scoop du Jour. I'm Jourdan Black. It has been a minute, but it has been busy and an exciting time since the finale of season 1 of Scoop du Jour. A lot has happened. I'm engaged. We'll talk about that on another episode, but in the midst of wedding planning, in the midst of enjoying Chicago summer, in the midst of, having a big girl job and doing all the things and reeling in some exciting guests for season 2, starting with episode 1 of season 2, trying to get that tongue twister out. Episode 1 of season 2 of Scoop du Jour, with a darling friend of mine, a wonderful sideline reporter, host, correspondent, Ashley ShahAhmadi. She is the sideline reporter for the Hornets on Bally Sports South. She is a correspondent for CMT. She does so many other things for college football on CBS Sports, amongst so many other things that we'll talk about. This episode is full of wonderful advice, so many fun memories. We were both reporters at the same time in Mississippi. She is just full of life, positivity, and just a wonderful human that I know you will enjoy as much as I do. Before we get into it, if you enjoy Scoop du Jour, as I hope you do, please do not forget to follow, rate, review, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, as well as on YouTube. Give it 5 stars if you feel like it. It helps this podcast grow, and hopefully continue to do so as we put in so much work to make it a wonderful thing for everyone. So without further ado, we will get into our guest, Ashley ShahAhmadi. Welcome to Scoop du Jour, sports reporter, host, my friend, Ashley ShahAhmadi. I'm so excited because this has been a long time coming. I think we texted, we messaged to have you on in season 1. We're in season 2 because we're evolved now. So we had to wait to have you on because you have such a crazy schedule. You're doing all of the things. Finally in the calm time from the midst of basketball craziness. I'm so happy to have you on, Ashley. And actually, I was reminiscing, thinking about the first time I met you. So our friendship goes back to Mississippi.
Oh, yes.
That's where your career started. That's where my career started. So for those who don't know, you are a reporter, a host, Bally Sports South, the host for the Hornets, amongst so many other things that we will touch on. So many amazing, cool things. But your career started in Mississippi, and that's where I met you.
Yes.
And I can remember the day I met you, which is so crazy, but I have these really vivid memories from Mississippi. I think I had traveled to Jackson. So I was working in small town Greenville. You were in Jackson, your second job in Mississippi. And it was maybe so I'm saying I have vivid memories, but I don't remember the exact thing. It was maybe an all-star press conference or state championships press conference at the Jackson Sports Hall of Fame. And we met in passing, but I was we'd been, all the stations would always text and email. And I was we know each other, but we hadn't met in person. And I do remember meeting you in person. And it was on that day in that place, whatever it was for. So I have a vivid memory of that.
Yeah, I remember. First off, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited. It's been too long since we've caught up, so this is going to be so fun. I'm so excited for you and your podcast. I think that's awesome. But yeah, I remember actually being, I think it was in Meridian, and you started in Greenville, or maybe I had already gone to Jackson, but I feel like maybe I was in Meridian and it was texting first. I don't remember the first time we met in person was what you're talking about, but I remember when this cute girl was starting in Greenville, but you were kind of a little bit far away.
We were babies.
You weren't we didn't see you all the time in Meridian and Jackson. Maybe it was Jackson, Mississippi. We didn't see you all the time there because it was kind of far, but you'd come for bigger, important things. But I would text you for highlights all the time for SWAC, football, baseball, basketball, for any of the high schools there that we needed. And just to think about that time and how we started and just the grind of local sports in Mississippi. It's crazy to think how far we've come. And, I wouldn't have traded that start for the world. It was such a great first couple years of my career. And man, there's good times and bad from Mississippi
Yeah.
for sure, and from the start of it. But I truly think like it shaped us in our careers and our lives. And then I think I saw you again in Arkansas when you were
Yeah.
there, and I was working with CMT randomly, and we did a shoot at Arkansas, and so I saw you there too, which was really fun. And we did the Woo Pig Suey together, so
I know.
it's
You
been
and
so.
Sam Pittman, like, that was so cool too because, yeah, another part of your career has been hosting for CMT and
Mhm.
being a correspondent for them, which was so fun to just be in passing and on one of
I
your SEC adventures,
know.
when you were in passing in Fayetteville and I was reporting in Fayetteville,
Yeah.
and you're so right, like, these small towns really molded us,
Yeah.
and I like what you said about not trading the
Mhm.
kind of glow up or grow up in Mississippi or wherever it was, because it wouldn't get anyone to where they are today. I truly believe that. But like I think back to so many parts of the beginning of my career. I'm curious if there's anything that you think back on that was like a really like a turning moment or just something that like sticks out to you as something that, I don't know, really molded you, something that was hard, something that was, fun, something that really just shaped you from your time in any of those cities in Mississippi that you just recall and you're like, "Ah,
Yeah.
that really helped me in my career or in my personal life."
Oh yeah. I think one of the first kind of so I started in Meridian, and then I spent 2 years there, and then I went to Jackson and spent 2 more years there. So if you would have told me when I graduated from Georgia that I would be living in Mississippi for 4 years, I would have thought you were crazy. I was like, no, there's no way. After Meridian, even I was like, all right, on to the next city, on to the next news station. Like, let's keep it rolling. But then the Jackson thing sort of happened, and it was kind of a good fit. Just it was a big jump from Meridian, and I was so familiar with all the teams, and it was a pretty easy transition going to Jackson. But I remember in Meridian covering 8-man football, and literally they didn't even have enough for a full team, and so it was in just this tiny town in Alabama, and I loved it because of how passionate people were about high school sports and just about sports in general. And I remember Meridian High School, Nick Saban landed his helicopter on the football field to recruit Raekwon Davis to Alabama, which was like the highlight of everyone's entire year in Meridian, Mississippi. It was like the biggest news story that we covered. And
Yeah.
having, the town shut down for a high school football game. I never grew up in a small town, so just experiencing that, and then not to mention just being with guys and gals that just graduated from college. We're all kind of in it together at
Mhm.
this news station. I feel like it just shapes you so much because that's the first time you're really on your own, and it's your first full-time job, and we were all just kind of making no money, working all the time, but it was such a wonderful first job, and I honestly wouldn't have traded it for the world. Going to Jackson, I remember towards the end of that contract, I was like, okay, I feel like this is kind of the peak for my time in Mississippi. I just didn't really see, that was the capital, and it was the biggest city in Mississippi
Yeah.
that you could work at. So I was kind of like, I think it's my time to make it to the next step, to try and accelerate my career a little bit more. And I was really looking to go into a network, and that's when Bally Sports, formerly Fox Sports, I jumped from that job to Fox Sports and got to go back to Atlanta. And it was just like, man, it was a dream come true of a job. And I couldn't have asked for, a better step in that regards. But just being able to talk with someone who was in Mississippi who kind of lived through it, it's not easy. It was such a
Mhm.
sacrifice. I mean, you're just away from your family all the time. You work, like I said, all the time, don't make a lot of money, but it's just, there's a lot that's rewarding as well. And I remember some of the stories about, some of the high school football players that I got to do packages on. And, they were just trying to get out of their town and go to college and find a way to go to school and I mean, it is just so inspiring. That's something that I really miss in my job now, is the storytelling aspect of what we did when we worked in local news stations. And so that was truly, some eye-opening experiences. But like I said, wouldn't have traded that for the world. It was such a great first couple years of my career. And, I don't think I'd be where I am today without it. So I don't know if that answered your question,
Oh my
but
god, and
yeah.
then some, of course it did. I actually remember starting in Mississippi, when Last Chance U came out, and that was
Yes.
so big in Mississippi, right? Because that was all of the, junior
So
colleges.
that's when you started working there.
Yes, it was,
Okay.
after the first season came out, I think, and it was remember the big fight was between EMCC and
Yes.
Coahoma County, and I covered was it Coahoma or was it, a
I covered
different
the
one?
first season. So I covered when they won the championship,
Yeah,
and there's a tiny clip of me in the
no,
show in like a hot pink dress and like a leather.
stop, we have to pull it up. And what was the school they got in the fight with? Because that's the one I always covered. It was right down the road from us. I went there on
Yeah.
my very first day in Greenville with,
Oh my god. Maybe
my
Gulf
sports
Coast
director,
or
and I
something?
was wearing wedges, like, cover with my first I didn't know I was gonna be on the job, so I'm, like, running down the sidelines with wedges on, with holding that big camera, those
Yes.
big, big cameras.
Yes.
Um, you mentioned
Oh my
how
god.
you went from Jackson to that next job, and I actually remember talking to you because of a job that came up too that we were both not the same job going for, but I was kind of, a couple of years
Yeah.
behind you and almost looking at that, Jackson job too, and you had been telling me about this Fox Sports, then became Bally Sports job. One thing that was so cool about you is you grinding, you work so hard, and I'm sure everyone who works with you knows that, but hopefully folks listening will learn that about you.
Oh.
Um, when you started at Bally, you
Mhm.
kind of you worked up, and
Yeah.
we do that in this industry, but the job wasn't necessarily what it is now, right? Sideline reporting and
Oh
hosting.
no.
Talk
Not
about that grind and how
yeah.
you kind of made it into what the job is today.
It's so crazy because of how much has changed since then. So that was 2018. I started with Fox Sports then, Bally now at June of 2018, and it was a digital reporting position. So basically, they just wanted a face for their social media. So the couple teams that Bally Sports covers, like the Braves, the Hawks, the Hornets, Memphis Grizzlies, Carolina Hurricanes, and the Nashville Predators. So all six teams, they wanted just somebody to, kind of do the fun stuff on Twitter and Instagram for all of those teams. And so I remember one of my first assignments was covering Chipper Jones getting inducted into the Hall of Fame and going to Cooperstown in New York, which
Amazing.
was unbelievable. And also the MLB All-Star game. And I remember they sent a camera person. You can appreciate this, Jordan. They
Yeah.
sent a camera person with me. And I was like, wait, I don't have to shoot it by myself and edit it and write it and everything by myself. And they're like, no, we're gonna send someone with you. Like you're gonna do live hits and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh
You're
my
just,
gosh.
like, trotting through the
I
airport,
was
like,
like, Mom, I've
your
made it.
shoulders don't hurt.
I know. I was like, Mom, I made it. They're sending a camera person with me. I like could not believe it. And so that was just such an incredible experience to start. And it was for just a couple months. It was basically June through September. And then the hosting job for the Hornets came about where my boss came to me and said, we know you love basketball because I told them when I got the job, of course, they asked of what your dream job is. And I said, I want to be a sideline reporter in the NBA. I was like, that's been my dream since I was 10 years old. I am willing to do whatever it takes to get there. I've loved every stop I've made along the way, which is, what we're doing here. But I loved what I was doing, the digital stuff as well. But obviously, that dream job was always kind of in the back of my mind. So when they presented this hosting job where I went to Charlotte for their home games and I did the pre and post game show and
Mhm.
halftime. And then when the team went on the road, I would go back to Atlanta and do like my digital job. So it was a little bit of that for honestly 3 months maybe. And that was kind of how I thought things were going to be rolling. I was like, oh, awesome. Like I'll spend some time in Charlotte and then I'll go back to Atlanta and do
Yeah.
like a little bit of both. It's going to be great. And then Stephanie Reddy, who is such a mentor to me, she works for NBA TV and Turner now, but she was the Hornet sideline reporter for like 10 years. So nobody expected her to leave. At least I didn't anytime soon. And she got this great opportunity, which is what she's doing now. And it was December of 2018. And my bosses called me in, and I thought they were just going to either tell me things I need to work on or tell me, hey, you're doing a good job on hosting, or I don't know. I just thought it was kind of like a casual meeting. But when I walked in, I remember they were all sitting there in like a circle and I was like, "Hey guys, like what's going
You
on?"
good?
And they literally dropped this bomb of, "Hey, Stephanie is leaving. We need a sideline reporter, like you're up." And I literally, Jourdan, my jaw, I get chills just talking about it because I will never forget that moment of being in their office and like just hearing that this is, I mean, the time was coming. I'm literally getting chills thinking about it because
Oh,
it was everything that I had ever worked for. And I remember one of the first questions was like, they said, "Hey, you're gonna go to Charlotte, like you'll live in a hotel for the rest of the season." So I lived in a hotel from January to or from December to April. And my first question was like, "Well, what about my clothes? Like, how am I gonna get everything? Because I'm not, I can't just pack some suits and
yeah.
ties like guys can and call it a day. Like, how am I gonna?" So I went to TJ Maxx, bought three of the biggest suitcases that they have, packed all my clothes in there, and I literally lived out of like my car in the hotel because I didn't have the same room the whole time, so I had to check out like every week.
You
And
did like,
so,
things you don't think about
oh my
as
god.
an outsider, right?
So we went on the when the team would go on the road, like I would check out of my hotel, pack everything in my car, and like the cleaning ladies there, I became such good friends with them. Like the front office staff, I became such good friends with them. It was truly a year that I will never forget. It's like something I want to tell my kids one day, like how I
Mm.
started in this business, because that was the first year of it. And then after that, they came to me and they were like, "Hey, you have to go freelance if you want to keep doing this for next year, or if you want to come back and do your digital reporting job, like you're welcome to." But I was, of course, was like, "No, I want to go to Charlotte." So then
I'm
I
good.
moved to Charlotte the next year, and I've been there ever since. It's been this was my fifth season with them, which is just insane. We had a COVID year in there. We had a year we didn't travel, which that was wild. Just broadcasting all the games from the arena. That was insane. It feels like forever ago now too, but
Right.
it's been amazing. I love basketball so much. Like I love football and doing, Braves games is fun too, but basketball is just my absolute passion. So being able to call this my job is insane.
It's like you said, you're what you've wanted to do since
Yeah.
you were little. I'm curious when they told you that, like, you said the first thing
Mhm.
that came to your mind was, "What will I wear and what will I do?" Right? Not like that's,
Yeah. I was like, how am I
like
gonna
the
pack all this stuff?
logistics.
Yeah, the logistics for sure.
But, was there ever a moment where you were like, This is so soon, I thought I would be working for this for a little bit longer,"
Oh
or
yeah.
what if it would come and when? Was there ever a moment where you were like, "Am I ready?" Or, "Will I be ready?" Or
Mhm.
were there any little doubts?
As you know, Jordan, in this business, it's like if you don't go for it, then like the opportunity will be gone. And I feel like even to this day, with doing this for now a couple years under my belt, it's like I still try and say yes to anything I can. I'm a little bit better at it now, just because I have been doing it for a little bit longer. But like, there's still plenty of new opportunities I'm getting where I'm like, if I don't say yes, they're not going to ask me again.
Mhm.
So when that came along, yes, it was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I going to live in this hotel? Like, but it wasn't even a question for me. I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. I obviously was super nervous. I mean, this was, you know, especially when I first got like just the hosting job for the Hornets. I remember, they were like, it's a 30-minute pregame show, 20-30-minute postgame show. Um, and as you know, in news, we do have teleprompters sometimes, but
Right.
this was absolutely ad lib. And
Yeah.
I remember that part freaked me out so much. I was like, wait, so I have to host this show totally ad lib. And they were like, yeah, like this is the show. And so now I can't even imagine doing the show off of a teleprompter. Like
Oh
it's
my
just
gosh.
possible.
It's so
Yeah.
confined for
Oh yeah. Like
yeah.
it's not even possible. But I remember at the time thinking like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I was like, this is gonna be wild. And then, with the sideline reporting thing, just I immediately remember thinking of like, okay, let me watch YouTube videos of really good sideline reporters that I love to like try and see how they ask questions, the types of questions they ask, how long they are, how short they are. Like I just remember doing a bunch of research as soon as that happened and just knowing that like this is gonna be, the biggest challenge I've had to face yet. But there weren't doubts. It was more just nerves, but like excited nerves. Someone once told me, if you're not nervous, it means you don't care.
Yeah.
And so anytime I get nervous about something, I mean, even to this day, things that I get nervous about, I'm like, I just really want to do a good job. So that's kind of how I was
It's
approaching it.
it's like the best kind of adrenaline, I think.
Yes.
When you were looking up those reporters, was it the same type of people you always looked up to? I'm curious who you
Yeah.
kind of admire and
Yeah.
not that we mold, but
Yeah.
who you kind of mold your game after, if you will.
So Maria Taylor, who also graduated from
Yeah.
Georgia, was somebody that I loved how professional she was. When she was on college game day, I just thought, she has fun, but she keeps it really professional. And that's just something that I wanted to kind of use as my brand as well. Like I always, it's nice to have fun and to show your personality and show your character, but I also really wanted to, hey, like I love the game of basketball. I want to talk basketball. I want to ask those types of questions. Like I remember, just really looking up to how she approached it. And also, Allie LaForce is somebody, she works for NBA TV and Turner. She's doing the playoffs right now. She's someone that I really do admire. And I remember Jourdan, she did a Ole Miss football game with CBS, like when she worked for CBS. Um, and I was like too nervous to approach her then, but I remember just watching her and how she even just like walked to the sidelines, took notes, like how she was standing with the players and how she was interacting with them and the coaches and, mentally taking notes of that too. So just little things like that. She's someone I've definitely looked up to. And, even like Doris Burke, who
Mhm.
isn't sidelined now, but just how she's been able to mold such a career for herself. And, I really just respect everything that she's done as well. So, but I think the first one probably was Maria Taylor.
I love how you emphasize, like, the professionalism, right? Because
Yeah.
I think, especially as women in the business, there's can
Mhm.
be an emphasis and background noise about, you know, the lack of professionalism or taking
Yeah.
away from that and emphasizing that when sometimes there's what, I'm sure there are a lot of men that that's not the first thing they have to think of, right?
Yeah.
It just can come naturally, but the fact that that's what your brand is modeled after, is
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that struck me too is probably something a lot of people don't realize that you are traveling on the same schedule as the players, the team. Obviously, the first year was a little bit funky, and then the COVID year thrown in, right? So you've
Yeah.
seen it all,
Yeah.
but you probably have travel now down to a science. And I
Oof.
imagine, like, not only were you doing it during football season, during basketball, during both, because for those who don't know, you did CBS Sports this year, an SEC football show. Really cool with like you've worked with amazing people. I want to touch on that too.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure they say the same
No.
um, about you. But talk to me about like how you maneuver and work like your week when travel's coming up and like travel hacks.
Yes. So it's so funny because when I was younger, I used to love going to airports. I used to love traveling in like airplanes. And now it's like, if I'm not working, that is the last thing I want to do. I hate packing bags. Like, I hate packing suitcases.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's just a part of the business. And we do get to travel really nicely when it comes to the Hornets. So it's not, we basically like, get to walk on the plane, which is so bougie. And like, I understand that it's so, I mean, I fly
Good
commercial
perk.
all the time, so it's not like that's just what I do. But it is really nice. I don't have to worry about how heavy my bags are or whatever when it comes to the Hornets,
Oh my
which is
god, no, that is a huge
oh,
benefit.
it is so nice. Yeah, it is really nice.
You're not
But
like me putting your suitcase on the scale the night
oh my,
before.
I do that. I do, and I bought one of
Other
those
times
suitcases that has like this handle that has a red mark if it's over 50. And so because
that's
I'm
actually really
notorious,
good.
yeah, I'm notorious for overpacking. But when it comes to, packing for road trips, so basically we get the NBA basketball schedule in August. And so it's funny because it's like you're going to know exactly where I am for 7 months out of the year. I mean, we travel the day before when there's long road trips, like when we do our West Coast trip, we hit Sacramento, Lakers, Golden State, Phoenix, usually Utah. Like we usually hit 5 or 6 of those. That's our longest trip.
Yeah.
Um, and I try and pack one outfit per game and I try and like try it on before just to make sure. And then I always pack an extra because you just never know if a zipper's going to break, if something's going to not work or whatever it may be. So then I'll try and pack one for that. And then there's like shoot around. So then I have, sweats for that. And then I try and work out on the road if I can. And then if we have off days in between, then you have to kind of pack like normal clothes for that as well. And so I've definitely I don't know if I don't know if you can ever master packing because I do overpack quite frequently, but it's just like you never know what you're
Totally.
gonna need, especially when it comes to this job because it's not like you're just wearing, sweats or whatever. It's like fancy clothes, I guess you could say. And so I just never know exactly what I'm gonna need. So I just try and like break it up by cities that we're in. The real hard part is when we go to like Milwaukee and which we don't do this very often, but like Milwaukee and Dallas or like Miami,
Mm,
Boston, if it's like a hot and cold,
yes.
that is never easy, but they normally do try and break it up to,
By climate
a little bit.
and
Yeah.
time
Like
zone.
regions of the US is how they usually do it. So like we'll hit New York and Boston, Milwaukee, Chicago, like they try and break it up like that, but
Mm,
sometimes the schedule is just what it is. So I've learned a little bit with that in that regards.
okay. So, at least you don't have to pack, like, you can pack the bigger toiletries when you're with, the Hornets, that's good to
Yeah.
know. Um, what about, like, any travel hacks, like, when you're not with the if you're
Yeah.
doing football, I don't know, like, what's something everyone needs to know when they're traveling, whether it's skincare, morning
Yeah.
routine, like you said, you work out on the road, I mean, that's
Mhm.
pretty bold, pretty big.
One thing is TSA pre-check. I don't
Oh,
know
yes.
where I was for years. I mean, granted, I never traveled like I do now, so it makes sense, but it is the greatest thing in the world. And it's I think it's less than $100 and it lasts like 5 years. So I don't know why everyone doesn't. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be what it is if everyone did it, but it is the greatest thing in the world. So TSA pre-check is a huge hack of mine. And then honestly, sometimes I try and pack like makeup or an outfit or something in my carry-on just in
Mhm.
case something happens to my checked luggage and then I'm not
Oh my
totally,
goodness, yeah.
you know, totally missing out with that. But I don't know. I guess just I tend to bring like everything that I have at home on the road just because I love having like a morning skincare and I love, having like my actual products with me. And so I'm probably not the best person to
Yeah.
talk about it, Jordan, because I really
No, I
do
know.
overpack way too much. But it's also one of those things when people make fun of me, I'm like, when you need a safety pin or when you need hairspray, I got it. Like I'm your girl. When you need a sewing kit, like I have this mini travel one that I go with. And one time, one of my coworkers, his pant hem came off, and he was like, "Do you have some?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have it for you." So they don't complain
Right.
more because I usually have all those things with me.
What's the best, city that you like to travel to or one of your favorites a as far as, like, game day atmosphere and
Yeah,
then just travel city that you like
yeah.
that you've liked to hang out in?
My favorites are the ones where everything's walkable. So
Mm,
anywhere that we're staying where I know I can walk to coffee shops or breakfast or food or anything that is just walking distance because I'm not like an Uber gal unless I have to be. And so I just would rather walk like 2 miles to get somewhere than to Uber or drive there somehow. So obviously like New York and Boston is so fun just because there's so much around. And same with, in California, it's definitely fun when we're like in San Francisco. I love that city. But one that maybe people don't always talk about, but I love Toronto. I think it
ah,
is Canada is amazing. I love, things are pretty much the same, but like a little bit different. They have their own flair with some things. The food is amazing there. I love where we stay. It's so walkable there. And there's just so much. I always like find something new that I can see or venture to when I go there. Um, and let's see, I love also Phoenix because I love hiking their trails there, which is really fun.
so
And
cool.
then, yeah, some Chicago is always a good one too because I
Very
love,
wonderful.
we stay
If it's
right,
not freezing.
yeah, we stay right there, right downtown. So there's so much to see there all the time. But some of the iconic arenas, obviously Madison Square Garden in New York, it's just like it's so old and everything is the same as it was, years and decades ago, which I think is so kind of nostalgic. And same with Boston, their arena as well. So some of those older ones, I really, you know, it's like when you walk and you're like, oh, the history that's been in this building is amazing. And then you go to places like Milwaukee and their brand new arena and they have like
Yeah.
reclining seats for the players and like heated seats for them too. So many just new amenities, which is fun to watch as well. But I like some of those iconic ones, I think, the most.
Okay, one more work well, for now, work question, and then I have a lot of fun questions. What does your prep look like? I think a lot of people think they see you on a
Yeah.
game on a Tuesday, and then, you've maybe been given questions or something like that.
Mhm.
Tell us, what your day-to-day looks like when you have a game and what the prep leading up to looks like.
This is such a good question because I do think people maybe don't realize the prep that does go into it. Sometimes I do get asked, like, do you know your questions beforehand? Blah, blah, blah. Like, is that how you prepare for interviews? And, when I first started, yes, I would try and kind of like think of things that would be good to ask in any situation just because it kind of calmed my nerves to have like some sort of cheat sheet, if you will. But now, it's just watching the game and
Mhm.
I was doing the Milwaukee Miami playoff game this year, and it was the first time that I was doing a game where I only cover the Hornets. So if they don't win, we don't do a post game, a walk off interview. But this was a time where I had to interview whoever won, and it was such a close game. I promise you, I was literally running back and forth. It was either going to be Giannis or it was going to be Jimmy Butler, and so that was really a good challenge for me because I couldn't just like sit there and try and prepare something of, if I was only interviewing Miami if they won or lost. Like I had to really try and make my question specific to if it were Milwaukee, if they
Yeah,
just forced another, I think it was forcing a game five, or if it was Jimmy Butler and if they, wipe them out, which they did. They won and they able to knock off a one seed. So in my mind, that was like one of the most challenging but most rewarding. It was one of the greatest experiences of my career thus far. But it was just so it was so challenging to be able to, kind of I mean, it was off the cuff, like totally on the fly. And it was because they won in the last couple seconds. And so I
right.
really had to just kind of put it together because you never want to, at least for me, like I really try not to stumble over my words with those interviews because it's like you have 2 to 3 questions with them and you really want to make it good ones. But when it comes to the Hornets and what I do like day to day, so hosting the pregame show definitely takes most of my time. I spend a couple hours the night before researching the team that we're facing because once you get into the season, like I'm with the team every single day, whether it be practice, shoot around for the Hornets. So like I know what's going on with them. I usually know injury wise and what's happening there. So I'm always researching the team that we're playing, stats, any cool little stories because I do the 30-minute pregame show, but then I also it's unique because I'm also the sideline reporter, which most teams have 2 people who do that. So
Ah,
um, that's something that's a little bit different, and I love it. But it's definitely sometimes like my sideline reporter duties kind of get to the back burner if I'm doing like a ton on the pregame show and vice versa.
okay.
So it's a lot of just researching the other team, trying to find cool stories and tidbits to say in game, making sure I'm prepared for the pregame with stats, numbers. Because my job with the pregame show is kind of like a traffic cop and getting our analyst from point A to point B. And this past year, we had a new analyst who had never done really TV before. So that was definitely a challenge because he was very short winded. So just because he'd never done it before. So it was,
Stretch.
yes, it was me, my producer in my ear saying, like, we need more, we need more. So this past year was definitely like I came with a ton of just things I could ask him, topics to keep it going because he just hadn't done it before. So he wasn't used to it
Sure.
quite yet. But yeah, it's a ton of prep work. And then when we're on the road or when they're back to backs and we play on a Tuesday, we play Wednesday. If we're on the road, we won't get into that next city until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So then, I wake up at 8 and try and do some prep before we have to get back to the arena again. So those are definitely more challenging days. But after doing it for a couple years, you definitely get into a little bit of a flow with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much busier than I think people realize from the
Yeah.
outside, I'm sure. I think probably one cool thing that comes with being a sideline reporter or all of the cool interviews you get to do in
Yeah.
cool places you get to do. So I know obviously it's such a grind and it's your work, right? It's a cool
Yeah.
job. I think Ernie Johnson is who says like it's a get to job.
Oh,
And
I
I
love
love that. So who are some of the cool people that you've gotten to meet or work with or interview,
Yeah.
that stick out to you?
Well, it is always cool having your owner be Michael Jordan.
Uh,
So
yeah, I was gonna ask about that. As a
that
Tar
was
Heel.
oh my gosh, that meeting him for the first time, I will never forget that day. I had my glasses on, no makeup, like hair was in a bun. I was going to practice, and this was maybe like late in my first year or even my second year. And he walks in, and he was my idol growing up. So, like, of course, as he is to most people, but seeing him in person, I almost peed my pants. I was like, "Hi, Mr. Jordan, I'm Ashley." And he was like, "Oh, I know who you are." He watches every game, obviously. So he watches every broadcast. And so I didn't register that in my mind. So I'm like, "I'm Ashley, like I'm the sideline reporter." Like I just sort of introduced myself, but I'm like, well, duh, of course. Like he watches every single game. And so
Like, he has
it,
a huge equity in it, but you're
oh
like,
my
"Yeah,
God.
I'm Ashley," like, you might
Yeah.
recognize.
Yeah, and I just that was such a star-struck moment for me, just because it was early on when I started doing it, and I just, love that. And now, like, when I see him, it's which is still cool to say, like, I feel like people find that really cool is that, he's like, "Hey, Ashley, what's up?" Like,
Friendly,
no
nice,
is
amazing, like, tell me all the glowing things.
oh, it's so awesome. And after, honestly, the Netflix documentary came out, and, of course, like, I watched that, and I just have so much respect for him as a
So
competitor and as, I mean, he just loves sports and loves the game and loves like the way that he performed back then. I feel like you can't really find a lot of I know there are a lot of competitive basketball players, don't get me wrong, but just his attitude for all 82 plus games, it was just it was truly iconic to see. And so I just have so much respect for him. So that was obviously awesome. And then, you know, thinking back to like my first year seeing LeBron play for the first time was really cool. And meeting Charles Barkley and Shaq. Shaq is huge, like just as big as he looks on TV. He is huge. So that's, been fun to see throughout the years as well. And meeting some of those guys. Yeah, I think, just being able to call these people like your coworkers is really cool. And being able to, just even watch them like LeBron makes history, every year, and being able to have a front row to that is pretty cool. So it's been fun, but you definitely try, at least for me, I try not to be starstruck with, because it is like your job. And like we go back to the whole professional thing and just, this is work. Like this is work. This is what it is. Sometimes it's harder than others, to try and keep it just not like, oh my gosh, this is somebody I watched growing up. But it's definitely a cool part of the job.
well, another cool job that you have is CMT,
Yeah.
which, is amazing, and that's how we got to catch up in Fayetteville.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, and there was a cross between country music and sports there.
Hmm.
But tell me how you got into the CMT gig
Yeah.
and just all the things about it because, there are a lot of people who love country music, I'm one of them. There are a lot of people in downtown Chicago who it's not for them. We'll
Right.
get them onto it, but, I love country music, I think it's
Yeah.
amazing, so tell me all about that part of,
Yeah.
your job and how cool it's been.
Yeah. It's so much fun. I've been doing it for a couple years now. And, sports is entertainment and music's entertainment, but it's just so different in really good ways. It's kind of like a breath of fresh air when I'm able to do this. And they're so great because they're such a family to me now. The crew that I work with, it's really like a close knit family. And, some of the award shows that I've been able to do have been amazing and just meeting some of these artists. And, like I said, it's the breath of fresh air just to be able to do something a little bit different and outside of the sports world, if you will. But a lot of the same principles apply when it comes to these interviews and preparing for them. It's just, different topics and we're talking about different things, but that came about because, and I kid you not, our producer is a huge Braves fan, and he saw me on a Braves broadcast and slid in my DMs, and he got somebody else to do it because he got one of the female workers at his place to do it because he didn't want it to like
Sure.
look not professional, and I totally thought it was fake. I was like, "Wait, you work at CMT?" And she's like, "Yeah, we wanna bring you out for an interview. We're looking for, another host." And I really thought it was kind of a scam until they booked my flight, and I went out there and all that. I went to Nashville and interviewed, and, the rest is history. But it has been truly really, really fun, and this year we're doing, the last 2 years, we've been able to do this Braves CMT partnership, which
Yeah.
has been really cool. I kinda set, my producer from CMT up with one of the PR members for the Braves, and we created this partnership, this deal. And now these country artists come to the Braves ballpark and they perform, and then they get to sing God Bless America and the seventh inning. And
Amazing.
for a lot of them, especially early on when we first started doing this, they were, artists that were just trying to kind of get their feet wet and they were just starting out. So singing in front of 40,000 people, even if it's just God Bless America, but just being able to, show who they are and get their name out there in front of, I mean, Braves country is huge. So
Yeah.
that's been really, really fun. And we're about to start that up again in the next 2 weeks. And we have 6 more dates planned. And it's kind of gotten bigger and bigger every year, which has been really fun. But it's like combining two of my favorite things, country music and sports. So I really
Yeah,
love it.
like, what better
I
combo?
know. It's been
Wait,
so
and
fun.
you just went to the Luke Combs concert, like, just for fun,
Oh
right?
my gosh. That was for fun and random. We were in Idaho for my cousin's wedding, and he's performing in Charlotte in July. And I was not even joking, going to pay like hundreds of dollars
Yeah.
to go and see him because I love his music. He's one of my absolute favorites. Um, and I don't know if it was just luck of the draw or if it's because it was Idaho, but we got tickets for $20, and we just like the wedding ended early and like the festivities ended early.
Stop.
So we just like Uber, they were like, we're gonna try and get in, we'll see what happens. And we were able to get it was amazing. And Riley Green opened for him, and I
He's
love it.
amazing.
He is such a good performer. I really, really enjoyed that concert. That was totally for fun.
Um, he is one of my favorites. I can't tell if
Yeah.
I'm, like, offended that tickets were $20 or happy that more
Oh,
people were there, like, as a Luke Combs, like, a favorite, you
yeah.
know, he's my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, I thought the concert was amazing. I went at Soldier Field, and
Oh,
it was a little
so good.
pricier than $20, but, and for nosebleeds,
Oh
mind
my
you.
gosh. I know.
Um,
It was total luck. It was total luck.
but that's I mean, he's so good. I just love
So
him.
good.
And yeah, I guess maybe a little mix of sports and country music there because it was at Soldier Field. And actually he
Yeah.
wore, a Brian Urlacher jersey because I think he wears, like, the jersey of wherever he's performing,
Yeah.
which was cute, but I love him, and it was so funny. Some of my coworkers, from my day job,
Yeah.
so he has, like, a Miller Lite partnership,
Yeah.
and, they were like, got to go backstage and meet him, but they're like not big country fans. So like on Monday, they're like, "Oh, how was the concert?" I was like, "Oh my god, it was amazing. I loved it." I was like, "How was it for you guys?" They're like, "Oh, it was like good." We left at whatever time, like an hour before it ended. I was like, oh, "Okay." They're like, "It was fun though, like when we met him and his manager." I'm like, "You did what?"
Oh my,
And
even appreciate it. They
no,
didn't
they
even
didn't appreciate it. And
appreciate
they're like, "No, but we really couldn't see him that well because like it was really crowded with a lot of the Bears players who were there."
it.
And I'm like, no one thought to invite
Okay.
the one person who loves country music and
Yeah.
sports, who would
I feel
appreciate
like
both
that
of those
happens.
things.
It's like when you're doing a football bracket or pool, and the one person who just like randomly selects things is the winner. Like, and they don't know
Million
anything about
percent.
sports.
Million percent. But an amazing concert nonetheless. I was happy to be there, stayed in the rain.
Yeah.
So worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I let you go, I mean I
Yeah.
could talk forever and I'm not gonna let you go soon, hopefully. Um, Ashley, you are getting married soon. You got
Yay.
engaged.
Yay. And so did you.
Congratulations. Tell
Congrats
me,
too.
how did you and your fiancé meet?
Yeah.
And then tell me the engagement story.
We were set up by two of our friends who, I mean, it's his best friend's wife who I went to Georgia with,
Oh
and now
my
they're
god.
business partners. And it was out of the blue, random. I was about to start another basketball season. She had texted me and she said, "Are you single right now? I have this great guy. He's my husband's best friend." She said all these great things about him, and I was like, How tall is he? That was kind of my first question
Because
because
you're sitting right now, but
I
you're
am
tall.
sitting right now, but I'm 5'10", so I'm
Yeah.
definitely on the taller side. So that was
So
kind of
was
my
your
first.
limit like 6 they have to be 6 foot or taller
I
or, like,
have
taller?
dated shorter guys before, but yeah, I was kind of like I needed, at least a little bit. So he's
Yeah.
6'2", although she told me he was like 6'4". Then when I met him, I was like, Lane, he was not 6'4", but that's okay
It's
because
like
he's
an
so cute.
athlete bio sheet, like, they always
Yes,
list
and
him a
oh
couple
my gosh.
inches
And
taller.
I also had this, I have like this no athletes rule situation. I was like, I don't want to date any athletes. I've seen so much of that
Yeah.
crap and there's just no need. But he was obviously very different and, he um I think we work so well together just because he played baseball all his life and now he's working in baseball. And the whole travel thing, he gets it and he
Yeah.
understands it and he never, makes me feel bad about it or makes me like he's just so supportive and we're so supportive of each other in our careers. And I just think that's what makes us work so well.
Mhm.
So that was almost 4 years ago now. And the engagement story is wild because I did not see it coming at all. I thought maybe he was going to propose like this summer. That was kind of we had talked about it. We went and
Yeah.
saw a ring, looked at rings one time, and really didn't talk about it after that. And, I knew it was going to happen like eventually, but I thought
Totally.
earliest June. And so this was All-Star break where I had a couple days off from the NBA season and I got to come home. And I told him he needs to go into acting because the morning of like the day of our engagement that morning, we went furniture shopping, we went to the grocery store. Like it was the most normal day. And I went and did a workout class. Like I had no clue at all. I had no makeup on. Like I almost wore a baggy sweatshirt, but he was like, "Why don't you wear this like black shirt instead?" So thank God he was like, "She's not gonna want to see this in pictures." And so,
Oh,
but I just had no clue. His sister, everybody else was a part of it, but me, and it was amazing. I would never have had it any other way.
oh, I'm
I
just
have
gonna
never been more surprised in my entire life. And then he planned this entire engagement party afterwards, which he had my family flown in. It was the most incredible day. Did you know it was coming when you got
oh
engaged?
my gosh, I thought it was gonna be a different weekend. It
Okay.
was, like, on a Tuesday.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah, like, kind of not similar at all, but he was like, "Why don't you wear, like, a dress for, we're gonna do something with photos." So I got, like, a little idea, but I mean, he definitely wasn't as good of an actor, as your fiancé, it sounds like. So I was, like, a little but I kinda similar. I was, like I'd worked out in the morning, and we were in Mexico, so I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna shower, like, if we're going to a
yeah.
beach club." So I guess, like, on that note, he kind of, like, didn't clue me in too much because I didn't wanna shower and get really
Yeah.
ready. I was like, "Oh, I'll just we're gonna go in
Whatever.
the
Yeah.
ocean, like, we'll shower later."
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's the best
so
way though. I like 10 out of 10
yeah,
recommend being surprised because
I
yeah, I
know.
wasn't wearing makeup in the pictures and if it were up to me, I would love to have gotten all dolled up and whatnot, but it is the most special time and the fact that he like planned it all, it just means the world.
No. And okay, so now you're planning, a wedding, and I think, like, planning a wedding for a lot of people can be really stressful, but like you were telling me
Mhm.
before we got on, like, you're planning the fun part now, and it's just, like,
Yes.
you're so
Yes.
excited, obviously, because, like, you're marrying your person, but you're also
Yeah.
excited because you get to do, like, this fun, special weekend
Yeah.
all about you 2. What are some things that you both were really, like, wanting to have or had to have, like, the non-negotiables?
That's a good question too, because I think this has been such like an eye-opening experience for me because Tyler, my fiance, he was like, "Oh, this is right up your alley. Like you're such an organized person, like you're such a planner." And yes, in regards to like house
Like,
stuff and organizing like trips, like I do like to plan, but this is not my forte.
it's
And
so
like
different.
oh my gosh, I want someone to pick it all for me. Like
Yes.
that is my mindset. I think just because I never really was the girl growing up. I have two brothers, so maybe this had something to do with it, but I never was the girl growing up that like dreamt about my wedding weirdly enough. Like I never, was 5 years old like putting on my mom's wedding dress or whatever it may be. so now that it's here, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like we got to do this, like we got to get going. And so once I kind of got into it, and I was like, okay, we just have to make these big decisions, and like we're having a shorter engagement, so I had to make sure these vendors and everything were available. And so he is very much like, whatever you want, go for it.
The
Like
best.
I
Just show
joke that
up. Yeah.
I joke that when he comes, like everything's gonna be such a surprise to him because
Oh, yeah.
he just I mean, I try and ask him, I'm like, "What do you think about these invitations? Like, do you pick which one you like?" So he'll do some things like that, but mostly, and obviously this sounds cliche, but like you're throwing kind of a big party for all your friends and family. Like it's about you two, but you're really throwing a huge party for everybody that you love to be in one room together, which is everything that I want. Like the thought of everybody on both sides of our family being together, our friends, to just like celebrate love, it's amazing. And I just feel
Yeah.
like, you know, it's just going to be such a magical, wonderful weekend. And I think, and as far as, something that he really wanted steak for one of the entrees. So I
Okay.
got steak.
Guy things, I love it, but, like,
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
non-negotiable.
I'm really like a simple gal in terms of, just like white flowers, like very, I don't know, there's nothing. Oh, I'm getting a coffee cart and a
I
dome thing.
love that. You are a
So
big coffee girl.
I'm a big coffee gal, and like I think that's such a cute little
That's
neat
adorable.
touch to it. Yeah.
No, it's
So
perfect, and it's, like, very you, but also fun
yeah,
and unique.
yeah. I'm really excited about
What's
that.
your coffee order?
Um,
That's a question I
man,
don't think I've asked on the podcast before.
I'm a latte gal, but when I don't want a lot of milk in my drink, because
Yeah.
obviously lattes are mostly milk, I've been sprigging for the cappuccino, which sounds so bougie when I order it, but it's actually great because it's like the espresso, and I drink decaf too. Like
Yeah.
it's not all about the caffeine. I
It's
just
the taste.
I love it. Yes. And I love one of my favorite things to do, especially with all the travel that I do, is go to local coffee shops. And it's absolutely one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, sometimes I'll order that because it's less milk in it and it's a little bit of foam. It's so good.
Totally.
So would recommend.
This is making me, like, wanna go get a coffee right
I
now,
know.
like, um, I'm actually this is very random, but, like, when you go to all the places you travel, like, how do you find are you, like, Instagram, like, Pinterest, like, other people in the industry, like, how do you find your
I
stuff? And
usually
you
will
should
just
make a blog, not to give you more work,
oh my gosh, wouldn't that be I know people are trying to convince me to get a TikTok and I just like refuse because I
of,
just
like, all the
can't. I
places.
can't with another social media thing, but
Too
like
hard.
I totally respect it. But I'm more of like Google Maps what's around me and then I'll
Oh, yeah,
just
good.
kind of go from there. But my coworker, our play-by-play guy who's kind of like a mentor to me through all of this, his name's Eric Collins. He's the Hornets play-by-play guy, and he I think has become kind of famous because of his calls, and he's very
Yeah.
energetic and he's just the best. He also started in local news, so he kind of has a respect for that when people start that way. And, we've just bonded ever since. But he's a big Yelp guy. So when
Oh,
we get like pick dinner places, we leave it to him and he looks up reviews and Yelp and he gets
that's
us
the
going to the right
best.
place. Yeah.
No, as long as you have somebody who will, like,
Right. Or
get
like
up and
someone
do
who's
the
local to
work.
the city. Yes. Or like even the PR staff for the team that we're facing. They'll suggest places too.
Oh, that's so you know what? That, like, reminds me of getting, like, the media guide,
Yes. Yeah. That's it. That's
and then
literally,
it will have,
yeah.
like, PRs or
Mhm.
restaurant recommendations too, that's so nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Um, I am looking at my notes to make sure I, like, asked you everything because I feel like we could talk, um, forever and ever, but,
No, this has been so
no,
fun.
it's been so fun, but I know the one question I ask everyone that I haven't asked you yet, what's the best piece of advice you've touched on a little bit, best piece
Yes.
of advice you've ever received?
Oh, that I've received. That's a good one. I think it'd have to be what I kind of tell people as well is just, say yes to just about anything. Like know your niche, but especially when you're just starting out, like very rarely are you going to start out with your dream job. It takes a couple steps to get there. And if the first job you take isn't a clear path right now as to how you're going to get to where you want to go, it still will lead you one step closer. And so, in my mind, I'll get a lot of college students or people who are trying to go into this business and they ask how, you get into it. And um, I'll say, hey, like I started in a really small town in Mississippi. I worked as a weekend sports anchor, which everyone has a different path, and I'm not saying that that's what people should do. But when I say that, sometimes, a lot of the responses are like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to move. I don't want to do this. And so immediately I'm kind of like, well, this whole career is about sacrifice, moving, taking the job that you don't exactly want right now, but that could get you to where you want to go. Like that is what the whole thing is about, is just being flexible, adapting, and the sacrifice of it. And so I think that advice in terms of if you're trying to get into this career is huge, and being able to do what it takes to get there, because there are so many obstacles, as you know, and so many hardships and so many things that could make you call it quits. And so just having that mindset of like, I got to do what it takes. Like you moving to Greenville, Mississippi, probably not something you thought you were going to do when you graduated. And like me moving to Meridian, Mississippi, like it was probably not exactly what we thought, but we knew this is what we had to do to start out. And so I just think the sacrifice part of it is huge.
No, and I think it's almost a metaphor for life, right? Like, life is
Mhm.
full of sacrifices, whether it's for your career, for your family, or both.
Yeah.
And we've, at a young age, made a lot of sacrifices,
Oh yeah.
um, and it set us up, and, that Mississippi path brought us here,
Yeah.
right? So, how cool was this? I had such a blast. Like I said, I feel, like we could talk and
I
talk
know.
and
We'll have
talk,
to
and,
do this again. We'll have to do it again
um
sometime for sure.
absolutely. Where can everyone find you? Ashley, where can everyone follow? Plug yourself.
Yeah, I would say Instagram's probably the one that I use the most. So it's Ashley, the letter N, and then Shahmadi. There's no other Shahmadi in the world, so it's easy to find. So
How cool is that? Spell it for us though if anyone's listening.
yes, ShahAhmadi. There's a haha in there, so you can't miss it.
No other in the world.
No other in the world. Crazy.
How cool is that? Okay.
Yeah.
Love that fun fact that you left us with. Thank you so much for being
You
here, for
joined
sharing
it.
with us. I loved having you, and I loved catching up with you, and hopefully we'll get to do this in person again soon.
Oh yeah, when I come to Chicago, it's a done. We're going to a
Absolutely.
coffee shop.
We're going to a coffee shop. I will come to the Bulls Hornets game, Hornets
Perfect.
Bulls game, and
Perfect.
come see you in action. Thank you. This was a blast, and it's so much
Thank
fun.
you.
And I can't wait to hear about your gorgeous wedding.
Oh my gosh, you too. Thanks, Jordan.